What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Loft Sports podcast. I'm your host, Brian Finnegan, joined by my guy, Tom Schultz. Tom, what's going on?
Doing well, man. It's a Friday. The weekend's here. March Madness has started. We're going to talk about the draft, which is my favorite time of the year in terms of like NFL offseason. Actually, probably one of my favorite times of the year just in general. So, yeah, I'm excited. Excited about this show and really excited about the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Happy Friday, everybody. Best time of the week. I'm finally done with my corporate hell, just like hopefully all the rest of you by the time you listen to this show. So, right, and Tom's right. Yeah, so tonight begins our NFL draft series. As we'll be examining each of the positional groups leading up to the NFL draft, which is scheduled to begin on Thursday, April 23rd. In tonight's episode, we're going to focus on the quarterback. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the top four quarterbacks in this year's draft, and we'll touch on a few others. Tom's going to talk about some strengths, weaknesses, and maybe some player comps. And, we can also get into, which players might fit on specific teams. So let's get into it. So, Tom, I'm going to hit you off right off on the bat here. There's a sentiment out there in we'll call it the social sphere, right? That this year's quarterback class is underwhelming, to say the least, compared to maybe some other past classes. You've been watching the film. Do you agree or disagree with that sentiment? And if you disagree, why do you believe maybe most folks on the larger scale feel that way?
Well, I would start by saying I probably agree with it, and part of the reason is I think this time last year if you were watching quarterbacks, there were probably four quarterbacks you thought could go day one. Now whether you thought they were ready to start right away or could contribute day one to your football team is another question. But I think between Cam Ward, who I wasn't incredibly high on, Shador Sanders, who I had as my top quarterback last year, and then Tyler Shugg, who I felt if he could get in the right situation was probably a little bit more ready than people want to give him credit. His big thing last year was the injuries were bad and they were a major concern. And there was Jackson Dart, which was tough to read because of the offense he plays in. But there were four guys that you conceivably looked at and said, I think there are four starters in this league. I look at this year's class and based off of what I've seen, and I've really only watched Mendoza, Simpson, Nussmeier. I started Carson Beck today, and he's kind of made me go, I probably need to do a deeper look. But through those four guys and what I've seen from some of the other guys we've talked about, and granted, there's a difference between watching them on a Saturday and like actually going in and focusing on how they play and what they do and how they process stuff and how they throw a football. But through what I've seen so far, I think there are two guys that can be starters in this league. Again, maybe not from day one, but eventually throughout their career in this draft. So yeah, I think if we compare it to last year or 2 years ago, which I think that class was a little more loaded with guys that we thought could be starters in this league. Yeah, it's a weaker class this year.
Mhm. Now, why don't we get into it then? Let's start going through our quarterbacks here that we want to discuss in detail on the show. So, right, we have to start off with our guy here, Fernando Mendoza, right? We have him listed right here. 6'5", 236 pounds from Indiana. He's a redshirt junior, right? He's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, highly expected to be the number one overall pick in the draft by the Vegas Raiders, right? So here's a guy who, right, he transferred from California, Berkeley, where, by all accounts, he seemed more along the lines at the time, at least at California, as kind of like just a middling of the road type prospect. So he transfers over to Indiana and becomes a household name, right? Leads Indiana to an undefeated 16-0 season, and he leads them to their first ever college football national championship. Now, I've seen a lot of opinion online from some who say that, Mendoza this season really benefited from being surrounded by a very talented Hoosiers team. They have the system there in place. Kurt Signetti, we know his track record. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. Track record speaks for itself. But in terms of Mendoza overall, in your opinion, what are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? And is there a current QB comp that makes sense to compare him to in the league right now?
Yeah, so I guess I'll touch on the first part of what you were talking about, which is he a product of their offense? I don't know if I can say he's a product of their offense or not, but it definitely helped him, and we'll touch on this with a couple of these other quarterbacks. Definitely helped him that he was in the system that he was in, and he had the talent around him that he had, and most importantly, he had a really steady running game with two really good running backs. That one of those guys we may talk about, when we do our running back preview. But Mendoza is a good quarterback. Uh, he'll stand in the pocket. He'll take shots. He puts good power behind his throws. There's a zip to what he does. He throws a really pretty ball to the boundaries, whether it's out routes, whether it's back shoulders, anything where he needs to get it, to the opposite hash mark, or he's on one hash and needs to throw it to the opposite boundary. He can do that and do it really, really well. He throws a tight spiral. When his feet are set, he throws a really good football, has the strength to throw deep balls. Like I said, has a really good feel for back shoulders. If you want to see any of his big throws in big second or really more importantly, third down plays this year where they need something, it's a back shoulder throw. And he puts it in a position that, yeah, maybe it can be contested, but he's going to give his wide receiver a chance to make a play. I think he's good with RPOs. He's really comfortable with that stuff, and not just making the throws, but processing the information, getting the ball out, throwing a good ball, and throwing a catchable ball for his wide receiver. And he really does have a good touch of throwing the football. He can drop it over over linebackers who are trying to contest it. He can drop it in between zones. He throws a good football. He has a good feel as a passer. Some of the areas and concerns, he can take risks, especially when under pressure. There are times I'd like to see him just eat the ball. He isn't a super explosive athlete. He can be a runner, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're designing plays for, or really a guy who's going to look to extend the play with his legs. As I mentioned before, I'd like to see him just eat the ball or throw it out of bounds instead of trying to extend plays and force something that might not be there. He has this tendency at times to throw a ball off his back foot, which didn't really get him in trouble in college, but I think it could get him in trouble in the NFL. I like to see him learn to navigate the pocket a little bit. That's something you see in a number of these guys that we're going to talk about today. They're just not comfortable sliding, stepping up, trying to fight in the pocket instead of just tucking and running, or in some guys' cases, just bailing backwards, getting out wide. And like a lot of young quarterbacks, when he really tries to put juice on the ball, he overthrows receivers. But the stuff that he struggles with is stuff that I think he not easily correctable, but are things he can correct. And the stuff that he does well, which is really the boundary throws and how he throws a football, you really can't teach. So there's a lot of positive for him this year. And some of that showed up in his Cal stuff too. It's not like he just showed up in Indiana this year and was just a product of what he did. But from what I watched from him this year, I think this is a guy who steps in for Vegas this year, and he can be a starter. And I think of what Vegas is adding around him, it's only going to benefit him. Do I have concerns of if his guys can't win off the line of scrimmage? Will he be as accurate as he was in Indiana? Sure, but I think we could have that concern about any quarterback that's coming out. But he shows enough, at least in terms of just throwing the football and processing stuff going through reads, that I feel comfortable with him as a quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You kind of answered the question already. Like what you would think of him from like a running perspective, how mobile he would be at the NFL level, right? Because he has run those, occasional RPO. He was doing that at Indiana, and how that would translate. Yeah, you answered that perfectly right there, I think.
Yeah, he can do RPOs. He can do read options. They did a lot of read option stuff at Indiana this year. He's not going to be, the guy that pulls the ball on a read option and takes it 50 yards for a touchdown, like maybe Taylor Green will when we talk about Taylor Green. But it can be utilized and it can be an asset. And he is athletic enough that if the pocket does collapse, or you have these guys off the edge that fly off the edge and don't hold contain, well, he'll tuck a ball and run and get 10 yards. I don't think he's going to be Josh Allen, which some people like to compare him to, because physically they're very similar. He's not going to drop his shoulder and run dudes over, but he's athletic enough that he can get 5, 7, 10 yards if it's there. And if you want to incorporate a read option, depending on what your offense is, he can do that.
So is there a current quarterback in the league that you might be able to compare him to? Right, not Josh Allen maybe, but I've seen a lot of comparisons. People like to throw out the name Jared Goff around there, I guess just because of the build and maybe the way they can move around the pocket between the two of them. Anybody comes to mind?
I think he's a better passer than what Jared Goff was coming out at this point. I mean, I know people love Jared Goff. I didn't love him nearly as much as other people did. I mean, the throws he makes are really impressive. He throws a really nice football. Can fit in tight angles. The stuff to the boundaries is really nice to see. Um, I said like I think he could be like a Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, which I know when you hear that now, people are like, oh well, I don't know if I'd want to be compared to those. But like at one point, Matt Ryan was one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Like
Former MVP.
he led his team to a Super Bowl. So I think his ceiling could be a guy like that, where he's good from within the pocket. He's probably a little bit more athletic than those guys, maybe a little bit more athletic than Kirk. So there's more of a running upside, but I think that's just the nature of today's quarterback. But as a passer, I think he could really be what kind of those two guys were. I think if you're the Raiders, you would sign up for that right now.
So it sounds like you think that this is a slam dunk, right? Raiders, Mendoza, that's what it seems to be leaning at this point. With that being said, though, right, if he were to start right away, let's say day one, week one, right, he's under center taking snaps from Tyler Linderbaum, the new prized possession on that offensive line. If he were to start right away, do you have concerns about his development, or do you see him as a guy who could really hit the ground running here in Vegas?
I mean, I'll have concerns about him if the Raiders struggle to block up front, because then some of the stuff that I'm concerned about him forcing it, taking risks instead of just eating it and throwing a ball away. These guys feel the need to like go out there and try to make plays instead of making the smart play. Like talk about it all the time with Tom Brady. Like Brady wouldn't even try. He would just go down if he felt pressure because he knew, all right, well, if I give up a sack on second down, I have the ability to pick it up on third down or make it fourth and manageable, and then maybe we'll go for it. Do I think he's a slam dunk? Like, do I think he's going to come in and be a top 10 quarterback in football this year? I don't think he's a slam dunk from that perspective. I think he's ready to start in the NFL. I think everything he shows me at Indiana will translate to the NFL. I would like to see him. I'd like to see the Raiders get guys that can get separation. It's always nice, and we'll talk about this with guys that their wide receivers didn't get separation, that you can see how much those guys struggle or how their arm might not look the same when the coverage is super tight and super sticky. But I think of the guys, if he was in last year's draft class with the guys that were last year, I think this Fernando Mendoza goes one last year. So that's probably the greatest compliment I can give him. What the Raiders have done, I really like it. And I think they're putting him in a position to succeed. I'd like to see him get another guy or two that can win off the line of scrimmage to help with that. But I think he's ready to start day one. I'm not saying he's going to come in and win 10 games. There are still going to be bumps and learning curves. I said that in my write-up. He's still going to need time to develop. But the ceiling for this guy is a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And if he can become more accurate downfield, which, Indiana wasn't overly explosive downfield, and they didn't look to throw a ton of balls downfield. I'd be curious to see what he can do in an offense that lets him kind of rip it downfield a little bit more. But if he can become a better passer downfield, a little bit more of a threat, we might be talking about a guy that's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He's got a long way to go. Like, I don't want people to clip this and hear it and be like, you said he's going to be a top 10 guy. I think this year he has a position to be a middle of the pack NFL quarterback, which you would easily take if you were Vegas or most teams that are drafting a quarterback.
All right, let's move on to the next quarterback, Ty Simpson. All right, so Ty Simpson, 6'1", 211 pounds from Alabama. He's widely considered the QB2 of this draft class behind Mendoza. And from what I've seen, he's expected to be drafted somewhere looking like between the late round one, early round two. That seems to be the popular hot spot for him, at least as of right now, it seems. Right, so he actually spent 3 seasons at Alabama, but he didn't get a chance to start until this past season, and he led the Crimson Tide to an 11-4 record and a college football playoff appearance. So he leads them to a win in the first round against Oklahoma, but then Bama goes down in the second round to Mendoza's Hoosiers. Breaking down Ty Simpson now, strengths, weaknesses, and if you have a player comp for him.
Yeah, so Ty Simpson was an interesting study because the beginning of the year he was really good, and the second half of this season, it felt like his play fell off a cliff. What I like about him, I think he throws a really nice football. He gets really good zip behind his ball. He gets it where it needs to go. He can fit the ball in the tight windows. It felt like was given more responsibility in his offense or more freedom in his offense versus what I saw with Mendoza or some of these other guys, where he'll go to the line of scrimmage and he'll make checks and he'll change things up. If he sees stuff, he'll adjust to it, which I like to see from my quarterback. Has the arm strength needed for deep balls with a clean pocket. He can make anything in the middle of the field. That's where he's most comfortable throwing the ball. Can drop a ball really well over the top of linebackers or corners if it's zone coverage. Can extend the play or make plays with his legs. Has good footwork, will go through reads, go through his progressions, shows the ability to climb and maneuver in the pocket. He can work on that, but he shows the ability to do it. And he's very confident as a thrower. Like, he thinks he can fit the ball in some of these tight windows. Maybe a little too much at times, but he has confidence you want to see as a passer. Where I have my concerns are, I think at times he needs to make it easier for his receivers. He just misses easy throws, drags, slants, stuff over the middle of the field, checkdowns to running backs. I don't know what it is, but it just shows up way more than I would want on his film. I think he needs a little bit more touch as a passer. He can get locked onto his first read, especially when he gets sped up as the pressure starts to come. Because of that power and zip he gets on the ball, he feels he can really rip it into some areas that he shouldn't. Again, like Mendoza, needs to learn to just throw a ball away, take a sack. You don't need to extend it, and trying to extend the play turns into you losing 5 to 10 yards. He isn't as accurate as a thrower when on the run, which I thought was interesting. Needs to continue to improve his anticipation for receivers, his ability to lead them into routes. I said it again here. My concerns: I think he misses too many easy throws, and he's got to get a better feel for when the pressure's coming, where the pressure is coming. Now, this is also a guy who started, I think, less than 15 games in his career. As I mentioned, I watched, let me see, I have it jotted down here. I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of his 14 starts, I think, this year. Of those 10, I think 6 to 7 of them I felt really good. Of the other 3, his game against Georgia in the conference championship game, his first game against Oklahoma, he really struggled. And the bad stuff is, it's concerning. When I look at Ty Simpson, and it was funny, Dan Orlovsky, I guess, made a comment on one of those first take shows that they have on ESPN, and it was something like, hey, the gap between him and Mendoza probably isn't as big as people think it is. When I first read that, I was literally in the middle of watching Simpson, and I was like, I don't know about this. And then the more you watch him, the more you see his ability to play, and you're like, I kind of don't think it's as big as I might have thought it was when I first started watching him. The thing with Ty Simpson is, if you ask him to start day one, I think it spells disaster. I think he's a guy who needs to go to a situation and he needs to have the ability to sit behind a quarterback and learn and become more comfortable. He has, I think, the physical attributes you want. And we're going to talk about this with some of these quarterbacks, like the traits that you want to see in a quarterback. Ty Simpson shows it. He's the son of a coach. Doug Nussmeier, been a coach for years in the NFL and in the college world. Very well respected. He has a younger brother that's coming on the scene that I'm sure we'll be talking about in years to come. I'm talking about Nussmeier. Excuse me. Ty Simpson's dad is a coach as well, a college coach. Has been coaching forever. So he has a good feel for how to play this position, has played it for a while. He's a coach's kid. It's all stuff you like. But I think if you're looking for this kid to play day one, I have concerns about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was actually one of the next questions I was going to hit you with. What other concern? Would there be concerns about his development if he had to play week one? It's interesting. I was actually going through some of the teams the other day, and just looking at who we consider like franchise quarterbacks in the NFL, right, guys? And it's interesting. I was going through the teams, and all these guys who we would probably consider franchise quarterbacks in the NFL, they all played at least 2 years in college, which I found interesting. Josh Allen, Drake May, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, they all had at least 2 years worth of starts at their college. There were, in terms of guys who were franchise quarterbacks, that have had success at the NFL level. There are a few outliers, right? Technically, Kyler Murray is an outlier. He had the 1 year at Oklahoma, won the Heisman Trophy. won Rookie of the Year, but right now it's kind of like he's kind of going through a rebuild process in a way for himself. So there's very few outliers. Another outlier I saw was Cam Newton, right? He kind of I mean, he was at Florida, transferred to like I think he was at a JUCO, and then he went to Auburn. But technically, 1 year of starts, at a Division I football level. And now you see Ty Simpson in here. That's what kind of wouldn't say the word scares me as a Jets fan, potentially looking at Ty Simpson, but it is in the back of my mind. Whereas, like if this guy is a guy that has to come out, start day one, I have my concerns about, future development here if he really takes a beating, over the first, if he's starting right away in the first half of his rookie NFL season.
So so much of quarterback to me has to do with where you take him, right? So again, I do my own big board. I think I have Ty Simpson outside of the top 20. Now quarterbacks are different, right? Like you're gonna take a quarterback higher than what they're projected on the board. I can live with that. If you're taking Ty Simpson at, I'm just gonna say 10. I don't think he's gonna go that high. But if you're taking him at 10, I think that kind of puts him in a really tough situation because you're asking him to play sooner than what he probably is ready, right? Like if you take him 10, whatever team that is, whatever quarterback you intend to start, he plays bad by week 5, and now all of a sudden the fans are screaming for Ty Simpson, when really that's doing him more harm than good. I made a list of teams that I think Simpson can go to. I don't know if that was a question you had. I know you had comp, and I guess I'll do that first. The comp I keep reading and I agree with is Brock Purdy. Like I really think he could be Brock Purdy, maybe a little bit more athletic of a quarterback than Brock Purdy is in terms of utilizing his legs and being able to run and move and extend plays. Probably Brock Purdy, he throws very similar to Brock Purdy. Of all the guys who throw in this draft, he may be the one that I think throws the best just natural football. If we're playing two-hand touch or we're playing flag football or 7v7, like I'd probably want him throwing a football over anybody else. So that's the comp I'd have for him. In terms of spots, I listed situations that I think could be good for him, but not necessarily where I think he'll end up. So I put the Jets. And I look at the Jets and I go, if you took him at 18, again, I don't know if I love that because it may put added pressure. I think his ideal spot in this first round is going in the 20s. If he's going to go in the first round, and after watching him, I think he's going to go in the first round. I think there's going to be a team that likes his tape enough, especially at the beginning of the year, and goes, we don't need to start him day one. He can sit and learn, become a bit more polished as a quarterback, and we'll take that. I think the Jets are a good situation. You have Geno Smith for 2 years. He can learn behind him for 2 years. You get him on a 4-year with a 5th-year option. The Jets could be a good spot. The Steelers, if they sign Rodgers, could be a good spot. Now, I've read that they're not really interested in him, which is fine. That makes sense. Just the spot. I put the Colts. Could the Colts be a team that look at this guy and say, let's prepare for a world where we don't have Daniel Jones? Or we have Daniel Jones for 2 years, and then Ty Simpson plays after that. So maybe the Colts. I put the Cowboys. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to draft him, but it's a situation where I think it could be great for him. You have Dak Prescott for 2, maybe 3 more years. If the Cowboys, let's just say, got him at 28, they traded back. They thought there was some reason to take him. I don't think this is going to happen, Cowboy fans. I'm just painting the picture. Well, you get him on that contract, and then he can play. The Lions. Goff's contract is up in 28. It would give them 2 years for Ty Simpson. They tried to do something similar with Hendon Hooker. It didn't work out. And then I have the Bucs and I have the Cardinals. Very similar situations, right? You have Baker Mayfield, who's going to be in the final year of his contract. He's 30 years old, so he's not too old. Maybe you look to extend Baker to a 3-year contract. You have Ty Simpson play after him. Even if you take him in the second round, it's a 3-year contract. You like what you see after year 3. You can get him on a more affordable bridge contract. Maybe you sign him to a 2-year deal, similar to like what Malik Willis is on. And if he plays well enough, then you're moving from there. And the Cardinals, very similar. Jacoby Brissett has a year left on his deal. I've seen this spot rumored. Maybe they trade back into the first round. You get that 5th-year option. You have Jacoby for a year. If you feel comfortable enough with Ty, you throw him out there in his second year. Those are the scenarios I'm looking for this guy. Now, if he goes to the Jets and week 6 they're chanting for Ty Simpson,
that probably will happen.
which is my concern, because I can see the Jets taking him at 18. And 2 years of Geno Smith and then Ty Simpson, I really think could work out. I really do. But if it's going to be week 6, the Jets are 1-5 and Geno's not playing well, we want Ty. I think that's a disaster for Ty Simpson.
I'll give you my team fits. I'll let Tommy breathe a little bit. I was talking for a while there. So I agree with a lot of them. The Jets, I think really realistically, the Jets at 16 is probably, the point where we really start looking at Ty here, potentially going, right? I mean, we have Tampa Bay at 15, which they could look at. I don't know if they would look for him at 15 directly. I think they might be more focused on defense, looking at that pick. You have the earliest I guess he could potentially go is, he's not going to go 2 to the Jets, 3 to the Cardinals. That's too early. But Cleveland at 6. Browns fans, I want to point out, I don't think Ty is going to be someone the Browns would look at here. Again, we talk about situations. I don't like the idea of him entering a loaded quarterback room that has Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. It's just a very, very messy situation to just throw another quarterback into. So I don't really see that.
They're all like the same thing right now. Like, to your point, they're all like the same thing.
It's all the same thing. So the only one I will disagree with is Indianapolis, just because they don't have the draft capital right now, right? The Jets have that first round pick at 16. They don't have a first round pick next year, either, the Colts. So the earliest realistically that they could draft him, they would have to, let's see, their second round pick is at 47.
Yeah,
they would have to probably trade that, and I guess maybe their third to move up there. Yeah. But be that as it may, I agree a lot. Arizona, I think, makes perfect sense. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at Arizona. I'm looking at the draft right now, just in terms of the selections. I could see, so the sweet spot that I think for him, if I'm just glancing at the draft order, you've got entering the second round. The Jets have the first pick of the second round at 33. Arizona is right behind them at 34. I could see something maybe where if Arizona wants him, right, they'll have to jump the Jets. I think I would jump the Jets at 33. And a sneaky team that I have for him is Miami, who is now drafting at number 30, right? They got the first round pick from the Broncos after the Jalen Waddle trade. So they might have to. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Miami wanted to. Right, Malik Willis is only on a 3-year contract. I wouldn't be surprised if during this rebuild, Ty Simpson could get drafted by Miami. He sits behind Willis for a year or two, learns the system, and maybe Hafley and crew want to move on from Malik after a few years, and now it's Ty Simpson's team, and by then maybe Miami's built the roster up enough where they feel like they're ready to compete for the AFC East. So I can definitely see a situation, though, where Arizona trades up maybe to like Houston at 28, Kansas City to 29, move up in the back of the first round, you get Ty Simpson, you lock in that 5th-year option, and you go from there. Also, Pittsburgh, I agreed. Yeah, Pittsburgh could be a team looking at him. But yeah, I had saw that they haven't really been showing much interest in him. But again, that could all just be, it could just be a smokescreen completely. And I still have, on my list, I still have the Rams because, you never know, right? They traded their first round pick to the Chiefs as part of the Trent McDuffie deal. So they're not picking until really late on day 2. Right, 61 is their pick, so Ty will probably be gone by then. So I can't really see them maybe. I don't think they would trade up for.
I will say this: I do think he goes in the first round because I think having that 5th-year option is so valuable for him and so valuable for whatever team picks him. So yeah, if you ask me right now where I think he goes between 20 and 32. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Jets would take him there. I think the Jets maybe trade out of that pick, and then they look to take him then.
Right.
But ultimately, I think his sweet spot is between 20 and 32. If he went between 10 and 20, I would not be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a team out there that really, really likes the first half of his season, where he was in the conversation for the Heisman, and goes, we're going to bank on being able to develop that quarterback, not the one that ended the season.
I like your idea, too, of the Lions, too. I didn't think of that. That could be somebody to sit behind Goff for a year, and then if they wanted to move on from Goff, they can just take Ty. Okay, let's go to the next quarterback. So Garrett Nussmeier, right, quarterback from LSU. So I have him listed here as 6'1", 205 from LSU. At one point, right, this was a guy who was considered a potential top 5 pick in the draft, but his draft stock really fluctuated during a challenging 2025 season marked by injury. He played through much of the season, which what he described as a stabbing pain in his abdomen doesn't seem too comfortable to me. And that really hindered his ability to, what he said, to rotate the ball and drive the ball downfield. But he finished his career at LSU with about 7,600 passing yards, 52 touchdowns, so he's in the record books there. He seems to be overwhelmingly considered the QB3. And from what I've read and seen, he's expected to be a day 2 pick, second or third round. So breaking down Garrett Nussmeier here, strengths, weaknesses, and if you have a current QB to compare him to.
So I want to say with him first, he's, this is a quarterback that could have come out last year and probably would have been a first round pick. There's also a kid that then elected to go back to school. I'm sure in part selfishly, to help his draft stock. I'm sure he looked at it and said, I can be the number 1 pick in next year's class, versus last year he probably would have been around the Jackson Dart range. But he also wanted to go back to LSU to try to win a national championship. You could tell the pressure that this kid was under this year. It was like almost not painful, but like I felt bad for him this year, not in like a pity way, but you could tell this guy felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He did not play well this year. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. He didn't play well. LSU was a disaster. They couldn't run the ball. The offensive line was atrocious. They had no one who could get separation. The head coach was a lame duck walking. There were multiple games that this kid sat on the sidelines in games they played close with a towel over his head at the end of the game. And you could tell he felt it all. I think that's something that goes underrated when we watch these kids in college. So he's a kid that, like, after watching his film, I'm like rooting for him. I hope it works out. I started talking about his family before when I was talking about Ty Simpson. His dad is Doug Nussmeier. He has a brother who's going to be a quarterback. They're a big time football family. He came in with a high pedigree, high expectations. He was much better his junior year than he was his sophomore year. I think I have it here somewhere. Where is it? Yeah, his junior year, he threw for 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. He was really good. This year, he didn't even throw for 2,000 yards. He threw 12 touchdowns. He was a shell of himself. Part of that was the injury. But what I like with the kid is he throws really good right off the line of scrimmage. It's usually predetermined. The ball comes out of his hand quick. It gets where it needs to go. He's a tough football player, man. He got the snot beat out of him this year. He'll stand in the pocket and try to make throws, even if he's going to get hit. He'll extend plays maybe to his detriment using his legs. When he gets his feet set, especially on the run, he throws a pretty good football. That was about it this year. The concerns I have for him is he missed routine throws too easily. I don't think he has the arm strength to get the ball where it needs to go. Again, part of that could be the separation issue that the LSU wide receivers got. I went back and watched a couple of his games from junior year, and that stuff still was there. So I know he's talking about the abdomen, but he has 2 years where, like, if his guy doesn't have separation, I don't think he can get a ball to a guy if the coverage is really tight and really sticky. Can resort to throwing it off his back foot, especially when under pressure. Struggles with accuracy downfield. He got fooled by zone coverage way too many times this year for a guy who's a redshirt senior quarterback. He'll force the ball under pressure. He'll make and again, these might just be hero ball plays when the game's in jeopardy. But he took a sack against Alabama that just straight up got him benched. It was 4th and whatever. He ran backwards. Probably should have just tried to get the ball out quick, and he just ran backwards and took a really bad sack. Can struggle to go through progressions quickly enough. Needs to become more comfortable navigating the pocket. You're hearing me say that with all of them. This is a kid who probably some thought was going to be a starter. I think now his ceiling is being a backup, probably a good NFL backup. So that's and comparison. I found it really hard to find a good solid comparison for him. Like I saw, do I have that here? Maybe it was on my other doc here.
So your outlook for him, basically, you don't think he'd be like an every week starting quarterback, like a starter in the league?
I think there would need to be major improvement from him. Like the comparison I saw was like Kenny Pickett. And when I watched it, it was like...
That's not going to excite you, folks.
No, and let's be honest. I know there's day 2 talk with this kid. I think we're going to talk about Carson Beck, and I'm going to be more inclined to say if you're a quarterback needy team, you might want to go him over Nussmeier. Again, I only watched his senior year. at some point. Hopefully, I can go back and watch a little bit more of his junior year. Like, I put the Steelers there because McCarthy has history with Nussmeier. I put the Rams and like the Chiefs because maybe he's going to need more time than Ty Simpson. So maybe you draft him. You still have quarterbacks you like and he can learn. You know, the Bucks were there. Maybe the Colts if you're looking to get a quarterback to sit behind Daniel Jones. But this is a guy that I think is projecting to be a day 2 third round pick. Maybe you think he can develop into something, but I think he has a chance to be a good backup in this league. You know, your quarterback goes out, you need him to win you a game, he might be able to do that. But the concerns on stuff or on film that I saw his senior year were stuff that would really concern me.
Yeah, I'll echo some of the team fits for me too for him. I had the Los Angeles Rams here, and I was looking again. I was looking ahead in the draft, so maybe I mean their late second round pick, 61. Maybe that's even a little too early for him. They're also picking late in the third round. I think it's 93. Maybe that could be the spot for him to go. I had some other teams in here. I also had some of the similar teams we were talking about with Simpson here. I had Miami listed here as maybe a long-term backup quarterback. I had the Jets listed here again as a guy who clearly needs to sit his first year and learn. And Pittsburgh too. I'll echo again. A lot of the same teams that were looking at Simpson, I'm sure, are doing the same. They're looking at Nussmeier potentially too. And yeah, I had New Orleans there just because his dad's there, and I think that'd be a comfortable spot for him to fall into, right? Being coached by your dad, though. I guess that it could be a little awkward, I guess, for maybe Tyler Shuck if that were to happen. But yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, like I said, I mean, yeah, before last year, I mean, I was really high on him, right? So if he, right, after the 2024 college football season, he was a guy I really looked at. I was like, oh, maybe he could be a potential Jets quarterback down the line, as somebody they'd look into. But yeah, coming out of this year, I agree. But hey, at the end of the day, if he can carve out a role for himself as a solid backup quarterback in this league, we've seen a lot of guys make careers out of it. So and if that's what he ends up doing, and he has like a 10-year career just going to a couple different teams, being a backup when called upon, he plays pretty well, plays solid, then I think he'll turn out all right. So
again, it's going to come down to where you pick him. If you're taking him at 61, to me that signals to me you think he's going to be a starter for you. I think even if you take him in the third round, you're thinking there's a world where he could potentially be a starter. Right now, I think he's going to be a backup in this league. I think he has potential to be a really solid backup. I think if we're talking about this guy in 4 years as being your starting quarterback, I don't know how he'd have to take major strides for me to feel comfortable with that.
All right, let's move on to our next quarterback we're going to examine here. Carson Beck, right, from Miami, 6'4", 233 pounds. So this is a guy who spent 5 seasons at Georgia from 2020 to 2024, and he was serving as the backup quarterback during Georgia's back-to-back national championships in 2021 and 2022. So he took over as the starter in 2023, and he went 24-3 over 2 seasons, throwing for nearly 8,000 yards, right? So in his last year of eligibility, he transfers to Miami and leads the Hurricanes to the College Football National Championship, where they fall to Mendoza's Hoosiers. Looking for what I've seen of him, he seems to be expected as like a late day 2 to mid day 3 pick. So looking at Carson Beck, strengths, weaknesses, and if you have a current QB comp for him.
So again, I started Beck today, and there was enough in Carson Beck that I was like, I kind of want to take a little bit more time. I do want to preface this by saying he's easily in the best situation outside of Fernando Mendoza, as evident by where they went this season. Led them to the national title game, despite his at times shaky play, but he had a stud freshman wide receiver, Malachi Tony, 2 legitimate running backs. He had a tackle who's going to go in the top, probably top 5, if not top 10, has another tackle who's probably going to get drafted. This was a team built for this, and it's why they went out and got an experienced quarterback that they thought could lead them. He's got good size. He plays from within the pocket. I think he navigates the pocket really well, maybe better than any of these quarterbacks in this class. He navigates the pocket well. He's a pretty accurate thrower. I don't know if he has top-level arm strength. Like I don't know if he can get it on a zip. He throws a pretty football, but a lot of these guys are good from snap to 10, 15 yards. I don't know if he has the arm strength consistently to zip on the ball to get it to go 20, 25, 30 yards all the time. Really struggled with deep balls. Even when he had guys open, that touch, that feel, turned it over a bit much. Another guy went under pressure, I think makes really, really bad decisions, stuff that just isn't going to live in the NFL. And the question with him is going to be, is it more where he was this year? Just be honest, fully transparent. I was never impressed with him at Georgia. Just never. I would have never thought this was a guy who we were talking about being a day 2 pick. And I think that's shown with where some of the Georgia quarterbacks have gone in the last couple of years. It's not a knock on them. It's just the system in which they play in. I think he did himself favors in Miami. The offense helps. But I think if we're talking about him or Nussmeier, before I watched the both of them, I would have said, yeah, I think Nussmeier's number 2. I failed to mention Garrett Nussmeier had a really good Senior Bowl too. I have not looked into that stuff yet. I wanted to, so I'm hoping to try to look into that. And maybe I'll be able to come back here when we're doing mock drafts or talking about stuff around draft time and be like, you know what? I went back, watched the Senior Bowl, and I really liked him throwing the ball. It looked better. The abdomen really was an issue. But Nussmeier had a good Senior Bowl. But after watching Beck, I think he'd be my quarterback 3 right now. And I think he has traits and he does stuff where if you're taking him, you're thinking there may be a world where he could be a starter. Like the comp I saw for him is Matt Schaub, which I don't think is an awful comp. I think he's maybe a little bit better of a passer than Matt Schaub. But Matt Schaub was a starter in this league for years and then ultimately became a really solid backup, which I think this guy can become a good backup. Team fits for me that I had were potentially Cleveland, an area where he can go, and he's probably about what that QB room is, but you may not need to spend high draft capital on him if you're thinking day 2. I think you're thinking 3rd round, and I think the Browns have a good number of picks, so they could look to take that. Maybe Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is there. He can be a backup for Trevor Lawrence. Miami, again, in line with your, hey, here's Malik Willis. If we don't love him, Malik's on a 3-year deal. By the end of that 3-year deal, we can take Beck. I put Pittsburgh, who I believe does have interest in him. I believe they are either having him in for a visit or have been in contact with him in some way. And I put Minnesota. You have Kyler Murray there. You have J.J. McCarthy there. If you're comfortable with those 2 being your main guys for the next 2 to 3 years or seeing what you have in them, awesome. You can take Carson back. He can work with Kevin O'Connell. He can develop as a passer there. And if you think he's a starter, awesome. At worst, he'll probably be a good backup for, whatever team it is.
Yeah, I think Cleveland makes a lot of sense. I know, right, I spoke earlier about not being a great spot for Ty Simpson, but Cleveland, what intrigues me about Cleveland is, remember, Carson Beck at Georgia, he was at Georgia the same time that Todd Monken was the offensive coordinator there. So I'm sure Monken has a pretty good feel for him when he was there for a couple of years. So maybe Monken, maybe he would be a big supporter of them drafting Carson Beck. Maybe if they get into like the 4th round, maybe 5th round, if he's still hanging around, I could see maybe Beck getting drafted there and basically just sitting for a couple years while, you let the other quarterbacks kind of battle it out for the job. And maybe in like 2 years, maybe they want to give Carson Beck a chance for the role after the Deshaun Watson, after he's gone. And maybe they made a decision by then on Shedeur Sanders. So maybe that could be a long-term option for him. Yeah, Jacksonville, it's funny, as I agree with Jacksonville. I like him as a backup for Lawrence. Carson Beck's actually from the Jacksonville area, which is kind of like 30 minutes from me. So I think, that might make sense. Plus, I mean, they don't really have, I don't know who their backup quarterback even is currently right now. And again, Miami too, kind of the same teams we talked about. Miami, Pittsburgh. Actually, I saw a report that Pittsburgh actually had him in for a top 30 visit. Yeah. So I guess Pittsburgh's looking, they're probably looking for quarterbacks in the later round. So, and again, like if you're Pittsburgh at this point, you're probably bringing back Aaron Rodgers for another year. So if they have Rodgers, Beck, and they'll need another backup quarterback there. I don't know who else is on the. I don't think Mason Rudolph's not there anymore. I don't think. So if they can bring in somebody else as the backup and have Beck as like your QB3, I think that makes pretty good sense there. And yeah, Minnesota, I think again another spot where he could be the QB3. Just sit behind Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy and just learn under one of the best offensive minds in the league, and Kevin O'Connell. I think it's a good spot for him to grow and develop there. So
I will say one final note before we get to kind of this best of the rest. He is 23, turning 24. So it sounds crazy, but he'll be 24 in November, and that's something quarterbacks teams are going to take into account. I don't know where Pittsburgh picks in the 3rd round, but I do think ultimately he's a late 2nd, early 3rd. Maybe him and Nussmeier too. Again, when we're getting to these types of quarterbacks, it's going to be who you prefer. And I could see either of them going in that round, in that area. Wouldn't be shocked if both these guys potentially drop to the third, or if teams are just like, we think these are day 3 quarterbacks. They'll be backups at best. We're not going to take anything better than that.
It is pretty interesting. So actually, Pittsburgh round 3 has pick 76. And it's actually funny. Some of the quarterback needy teams we were just talking about, they're all like no joke, like back to back to back here. You got Miami right in front of them, Tampa's behind them. Then you got the Colts and Jacksonville.
And
So
again,
who knows? There might be some trading going. If a team really likes him that much in the third round, and they're like, hey, we need this guy. He can become like a long term backup quarterback for us. Maybe in the late third round or early fourth round. Yeah, there might be some movement there.
And you got to remember, the Dallas Cowboys drafted Dak Prescott in the 5th round thinking he was going to be a starter. They didn't think he was going to be a starter day 1. They got lucky with that. There are going to be teams that look at Carson Beck, probably Garrett Nussmeier, probably Drew Aller, maybe Taylor Green, and go, these guys can be starters. So if we take them in the 3rd round and we let them sit for 3 years, that's okay. It's important to not forget that as well.
One thing I do like personally about Carson Beck is just he's played so much football over the past 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to, of course, like a guy like Ty Simpson who's only played 1 year, people might, some teams might like that idea. I'm not saying Carson Beck's going to be a top pick, but, that's something to at least take into account if you're looking to draft a quarterback. Okay. Yep, Tom, you teased it a little bit. So let's get to the best of the rest here, right? So 3 other quarterbacks we're going to cover real quick here, right? So we've got Taylor Green from Arkansas, Drew Aller from Penn State, and Cade Klubnik from Clemson. So all 3 of these players are expected to be day 3 picks. Green is an incredible athlete. We saw him light up the combine running a 4.36 40-yard dash. It sounds to me like Aller might have the highest floor for his potential outlook out of the 3. He is coming off a broken ankle he sustained late last season. And Klubnik, was discussed about a year or 2 ago as he could have been a potential number 1 pick. However, he really struggled last year with Clemson. Clemson had a really, really tough year last year for them. So my question for you, Tom, which player out of these 3 do you believe could have a long-term NFL career? And of that player, is there any chance of them being a potential starting quarterback?
If we were doing this show a year ago, I would have sat here and told you, man, I can't believe Cade Klubnik didn't come out because I think he would have been QB1 in last year's class. So right now in this group, I'd say it's Drew Aller. I don't love any of these guys, and I'll just be fully transparent. I haven't watched really, or other than what they've done on Saturdays in the fall, I haven't watched them. I started to watch Taylor Green. There's an absolutely unbelievably freaky athlete there. I mean, the combine stuff says it. He played at Boise State before transferring to Arkansas the last 2 years. Their team has been absolutely awful. They were bad this year, just at times unwatchable. But they had him. They had Mike Washington. Mike Washington's going to get drafted. We're going to talk about him on Monday because he's a really, really fun running back. He may be the 3rd, maybe 2nd best running back in this draft class. He's really good. And Taylor Green and him were like the only fun things to watch about this offense. Taylor Green throws a good football, not a great football. All things considered, you draft this guy for his athleticism and then hope that you can teach him to be quarterback. Odds are his career is as a backup. But if you're a team that likes him a lot and go, well, we could implement packages for this guy. Maybe there's 10 to 15 snaps on offense that we can utilize with him, whether it's just a read option, whether it's a wildcat type thing, whether it's just something to throw teams off. I think he could do that, but ultimately I think he's a backup in this league. Drew Aller has everything you want. He started 35 games for Penn State, came in very, very highly touted. 25 touchdowns as a true sophomore, 24 touchdowns as a junior. His decision-making drives me crazy. He just doesn't make the best decisions. And I was hoping to see that change this year, and it hasn't. But there is enough good on film that I think teams could look at this guy and go, well, he has all the physical makeup. Like, I'm just on ESPN. I didn't see what he was at the combine, but ESPN has him listed 6'5", 235. I mean, he looks like your prototypical quarterback. He's got good mechanics. So I could see a team being like in early day 3, being like, you know what? Let's take this kid. Penn State's another one of those that's been an absolute mess. Now, he's had good running backs, and they've done a good job surrounding him with a better offense, and he's had decent lines. So I don't know if he gets the pass that some of these other guys do. But I think if we're talking about these three, he would be the guy that teams take the chance on the most. And then Kate Klubnik, his play just fell off a cliff this year. He's 40 starts, which I think is tied for the most in the history of Clemson. He came in with just such high expectations. He threw for 3,600 yards last year, 36 touchdowns. He didn't come close to that this year. Now, he said he had a bad shoulder. Apparently, he's been throwing decent. I think he just had his pro day and he threw decent. There's a size thing with him too. He's 6'2", 210. He's not very big, but he's a kid that probably hurt himself. I mean, I remember we were driving home from March Madness this time last year with some friends. And we were talking about, my buddy liked Cam Ward better than I did. I said, man, you want to know who's lucky he didn't come out is Kate Klubnik. If Kate came out with the way he finished last season, he finished last year really, really well. I think we would have been talking about him as being in that crop with, if not Cam Ward, then Jackson Dart and Tyler Shugg. And then we're probably talking about him in the first round. This is a guy who's going to be a day 3 pick now. And I mean, if he's a NFL career backup, I think he had done well for himself.
Yeah, I think you can echo that for all three of these guys if that's the case.
Probably, yeah.
Let's close with just one other question. I got Taylor Green, right? Phenomenal combine, showcased how athletic he is. Do you believe like a potential long-term outlook for him could be a position change at the NFL level? When I was really watching him work out at the combine, I started thinking of, remember the quarterback Logan Thompson?
Yeah.
Virginia Tech.
Played for the Commanders.
Played for the Commanders.
He's a good tight end.
From quarterback to tight end. Do you
really
think that's something Taylor Green could do?
If he wants to do it, he can do it. Because athletically, he is. I mean, if anybody likes watching tape, and this is stuff I like to do, just throw on a couple of his games and just watch what this guy can do when he gets in the open field. I mean, he's outrunning like linebackers and corners and safeties. I mean, you said he ran what at the combine? Did he run a 4.36?
4.36, yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. If he wants to do tight end, he could do tight end. There's no doubt about it. I think it just comes, if he can catch a football, I have to imagine. But if you're running and moving like that, there has to be a level of coordination, athleticism that you get this guy on the junks machine. He can learn how to at least catch a ball and at least be threatening from that point. You'll have to teach him how to block. We'll see if he can do that. But I mean, just from like getting the ball in his hands and letting him run, it's crazy. That's why we don't see it a lot in the NFL anymore, but there's a part of me that's like, if I was a team, I'd take this kid in the 5th round and just be like, can we designate 5 packages for him in the playbook and run 7 plays for him over the course of the game? And he throws a good enough of a football where it's like, I think you could create a way that he's still a threat as a passer. I'm just curious if maybe a team looks to do that. Like, maybe he can be a Taysom Hill-like, in that regard. But yeah, as a tight end, in terms of just getting the ball in his hands and letting him be dynamic, he could do that. I don't know if he can do everything that you have to ask a tight end to do.
Right.
He is an unbelievable athlete.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe some teams could script up like some kind of like goal line packages for him to run or throw, something along those lines. And yeah, I think I think I didn't ask you for a comparison of anybody, but maybe Taysom Hill. Maybe that's the comparison here for Green.
Yeah, and then the only final guy I want to mention is just Cole Payton from North Dakota State. I haven't watched him yet. He's a kid, man, that like when you listen to people who've watched him play, talk about him, like there are some people who think he's quarterback too. I think he had his pro day today. I haven't watched it. I may watch a little bit of it actually tonight. He's one that when we first started talking about this series, I was like, we have to make sure we talk about him. And then the more I've read about him, I don't know how his game translates. He's another one that I've read has been compared to Taysom Hill a little bit in the way he plays and his size. He's 6'3", 233. He's a big guy. He'll run a little bit. He can be physical. He ran for 7. He almost ran for 1,000 yards this year, 13 touchdowns. So I think he could be another guy where there's like packages for him and short yardage and goal line situation type stuff. Again,
would North Dakota State turn you off at all just from that program?
I mean, it does. Whether that's
Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, guys like that.
Whether it's fair or not, and I think Wentz gets a bad rap. He was having a good career before he got hurt, but
right.
I think the Trey Lance thing has been a disaster, and he's probably closer to Trey Lance than he is
Wentz.
Carson Wentz. Thank you. I mean, he has played quite a bit and at North Dakota State, but I don't know. Again, as we get closer to draft night, hopefully I'll watch him a little bit more and have a little bit better feel. But I did feel the need to mention him because I think he's a name that we could hear crop up as we get closer to draft day.
All right, folks, thanks for hanging in the loft with us. The official Loft Sports podcast can be found wherever you consume your podcasts. Check out our website at www.loftsportus.com. Tommy continues to add scouting reports for the draft. I've been adding a new baseball preview every day. Please check out our articles, rate and review our articles. Please let us know how we're doing. Feedback is very important to us. So we need to know if we're doing something right. Maybe we're doing something wrong. Hey, what else can we do better? So we're going to have some more bonus pods coming your way shortly. Tom and I are going to be back on the feed Sunday night with a Sweet 16 preview. We're going to break down all those matchups. We'll recap the most notable games from the first two rounds. I'm going to do a baseball preview show dropping sometime next week, likely Wednesday, because technically the first game of the Major League Baseball season starts that night. And then Tuesday morning we'll drop our next draft series pod. We'll be breaking down the top running backs for this upcoming draft. So follow Loft Sports on X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. All 5 social platforms. We are under at Loft Sports USA. Please rate and review us on whichever platform you listen to your podcasts. Thanks everyone for listening. We will talk to you soon.